Dynasty rookie mock draft. It's our fourth one of the offseason. Obviously, the NFL season's still happening. We still need to get everyone that's going to declare. Combine needs to happen, so a lot is going to change, but it's never too early to start mock drafting for Dynasty rookie drafts. This is a superflex 12-team start 10, so pretty standard league. 12-team start 10 Superflex Dynasty rookie mock draft. And we are using landing spots. I left a link in the description, but also on the graphic that I'm going to show you. It shows you where they get drafted in this mock draft. So we're playing in this pretend world that these are where these players are landing. And how does that affect our Dynasty rookie draft? And I'll tell you guys, this mock draft, it really made it tough for me on who to take and where to take them. So real quick before we jump into it, make sure to like the video if you like Dynasty content and subscribe to the channel. We are, I believe, 9 subscribers away from 1,000 at the time of recording this, so that would be awesome if we can get there with this video. And join our Discord. Link is in the description. And I want to do, once Sleeper adds rookies to their database, I want to do mock drafts with all of you guys live, a live show, and we'll do mock drafts. So get into the Discord. That will be the easiest way in order to join those when they do start up. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into it here. And at the 101, this was the only easy pick for me, Ashassin Jainty. He gets drafted to the Cowboys, 12th overall. Again, if you are in tune with the Dynasty community, and by the way, when I do these drafts, I don't want to just always do like, this is what I would do. This is the player I think is better or whatever, because not everyone's going to follow what I do. And in your drafts, not everyone's going to follow that. People get influenced by landing spots. And some people like players more than other players and positional value and things like that. So I think it does you a disservice when I just do exactly what I would do every time. I want to try and do a little bit of what I think, or maybe how I think the draft will go. And I also want to do things differently. I don't want to do the same mock draft each time, because that's no fun either. I want to change things up and see how the draft looks here. So the 101, though, is Ashassin Jainty. If you're in tune with the Dynasty community, it's Ashassin Jainty 101 every day. That's what everyone's saying. Like, there's no question here, especially if he gets first round draft capitals with the Cowboys. It's not even close. He goes number 1 overall. We don't need to move on. We don't need to continue with him. Ashassin Jainty's awesome. He's absolutely awesome. So 102 is where it starts getting tough, guys. Like, I still don't know where we stand on January 13th. Who should be the second pick in this draft? I really, really don't. To me, there's like 5 players it could be. And maybe it's going to depend on combine and landing spot, or maybe it's other things and what position you need. But to me, it could be Luther Burden. It could be Ted McMillan. It could be Amarion Hampton. It could be one of the quarterbacks, right? I think they're going to get boosted up here. But in this mock draft, I went with Luther Burden as the 102. He goes 6th overall to the Raiders. And in this mock draft, guys, if it happens this way, I think this class is deeper than we're giving it initially have given it credit for, because we have 6 players going in the top 12 picks. We have 10 in the first round. I think we have 13 or 14 in the top 45 picks. So, and that's only one running back. That's not even, this class is deep in running backs. In this mock draft, there's only one running back taken in the top 45, which just shows you there could be more depth in this draft class than we're giving credit for. But I chose Luther Burden here, one, because I haven't had Luther Burden at the 102 yet and kind of want to see how a draft plays out like that. But 2, he goes 6th overall. Like, that's legit draft capital. And I don't think I can bring myself to take a running back who's drafted in the 50s or 60s, late second round, over a wide receiver taken with top 10 draft capital. Although I do that in this draft class, but it's hard. It really is hard to do that. So Luther Burden, some people have him as their number 1 wide receiver. It's either him or Ted McMillan. I think some people like him a little bit more just because his versatility on where he can line up in the slot and potentially out wide. And that generally leads to more fantasy production when you can play in the slot as well as play out wide. At the 103, I do have Ted McMillan here. Ted McMillan is my 103 pick here. He goes 7th, right after Luther Burden, to the Jets. What's a better landing spot? Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I think Luther Burden going to the Raiders has a better chance at being their number 1 receiver. Maybe not the number 1 target, though, considering they have Brock Bowers there. Jacoby Myers, I believe, is going to be there 1 more year. unless they can trade him. I don't think it makes sense to cut him or anything. I don't think they can save much. And so, Luther Burden has a better chance. Garrett Wilson, there's a lot of questions on what, is Garrett Wilson going to ask for a trade? And maybe the Jets taking Ted McMillan is a sign that Garrett Wilson's not there. I don't know. The big question with Ted McMillan, I think, is what's his versatility on where he can line up. I like Ted McMillan a lot. He's a little bit more old school, 6'5" type of receiver, contested catch guy. If he can play in the slot, then I think he's the best receiver in this draft class. If he can only play out wide, then he still could be very, very good. Think of maybe like a Mike Evans, who I believe spends most of his time out wide. But it's gonna make it more difficult. You have to have a certain skill set in order to thrive out wide. So, and just because he's a big guy, I don't think means he can't play inside. Like Drake London moved to the slot this past season. Drake London played a lot in the slot this past season, which he hadn't before. So I'm just double checking. Yeah, Mike Evans played 526 of his 700 snaps in the out wide. So that's the big question with Ted McMillan. And if he is an outside type of contested catch guy, the quarterback does matter a little bit more for those players, in my opinion. So that's another thing to watch out for Ted McMillan. At the 104, I did go Omarion Hampton here. And this one's tough because he's actually the fourth running back taken in this draft class. And there's still a receiver with top 10 draft capital. There's a couple tight ends that are taken in the first round. There's another wide receiver. There's five wide receivers taken in the first round. So it's tough to justify taking them. But I think with all the hype of this running back, this is a running back draft class. And Omarion Hampton, if you go to anyone's draft boards, is generally at worst the third, and he's usually the second guy behind JT. And I think that's still going to stick with people. And I also think he goes earlier than this. I don't think he goes in the third round. He goes in the third round here to the Browns, which is a great landing spot. So I'm still fine with taking him here because I believe in the talent, and that landing spot is great for him, in my opinion. I think he becomes their number one guy pretty easily, especially with Nick Chubb, I believe, is a free agent. So I still think there's a chance he goes 104, even if he does get third round draft capital. It will be interesting, though, and I'm curious what everyone else thinks. If Omarion Hampton does go in the third round and there's a couple more running backs ahead of him and there's first round receivers, are you still taking him here or are you dropping him a little bit? Curious. Leave a comment there. By the way, I know a lot of people are going to argue the receivers maybe shouldn't go as high. I do think there's a little bit to the scarcity of the position. Again, this running back class could be 15 deep. There's a list of guys after the top few guys that all kind of fall into the same tier. RB's 7 through 15 to me could fall into the same tier. So you can make that argument of, hey, I'm going to grab my receiver early and then I'll be able to find a running back later on. At the 105, I have Cam Ward. I still think that quarterbacks being taken, whether or not we believe these guys are as good as this last draft class or not, I still think that quarterbacks in a superflex league that are taken with number 1 overall pick or number 2 overall pick shouldn't fall that far. The positional value of them, if they hit, is way too valuable. I guarantee you, if Cam Ward is a top 15 quarterback, producing at a top 15 quarterback production, he's going to be more valuable than probably almost everyone in this draft class, maybe outside of 1 or 2 players. But he's probably going to be, up there as at least at worst top 3 most valuable in this draft class, and maybe the most valuable. So I believe that Cam Ward, he goes to the Titans here with the first overall pick. I think he has a little bit more upside than Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders probably provides you with a bit of a safer floor. I'd be surprised if Shedeur Sanders busts completely and he's not at least an average starting quarterback in the NFL. I do think Cam Ward has a little bit more upside. Now, there is an argument to be said, the guy still makes mistakes. You scratch your head at some of the plays he makes, and he's been playing college football for a long, long time. I get that. Get him in the right system, which are the Titans the right system? I don't know. But you get him in the right system with the right coach, and I think there's something here where he could be productive and have more production than a Shedeur Sanders. And again, I think as we get closer to the draft, by the way, my 106 here. I think as we get closer to the draft, I think these quarterbacks, I think people are going to get more excited about them. That's just kind of my feeling here. That generally happens with quarterbacks. Um, I just don't see these guys really falling too much. They don't. I don't see them falling outside of like. I think like 107 at the worst is where they should be going if they get the draft capital. So Shedeur Sanders goes to the Browns, second overall in this mock draft. And I have him at the 106. Again, kind of the same logic here. Both these guys, I think they can move more than what they did in college. They did like nothing on the ground in college. I think they're a little bit more mobile than that. They can give you like a 15 to 20 yards, rushing yards per game in the NFL. I think that's going to become kind of a little bit a part of their game, in my opinion. Kind of what we're seeing from like Bryce Young ever since he got benched. Like he's been giving you a pretty solid rushing floor. And Bryce Young never really rushed for much in college as well. I think they're mobile enough to where in the NFL they're going to learn to kind of take those 5 yards that are given to you rather than just try to beat everyone with their arm all the time. So that's my top 6 in this rookie draft class. Again, I could see it going. I could see a couple people later on in this draft that I took being in the top 6. You can make an argument for them. So I think it's way too early to say this is solidified top 6, but this is the direction I went with this mock draft, just kind of see how it went and basing it off the landing spots. We have Ashton Jeanty, Luther Burden, Tet McMillan, Omarion Hampton, Cam Ward, and Shedeur Sanders. At the 107, I took Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka in this mock draft went 9th overall to the Saints. I don't think we love that landing spot. So I could see him falling. Like I could see people saying, I don't love the landing spot. I don't love Derek Carr. What is going to be their quarterback situation, blah, blah, blah. And I could be people saying like, I don't think he's better than Olave and kind of like pushing him down a little bit. That being said, he's still taking 9th overall, man. Like top 10 wide receiver draft capital is insane. Do I think he's going to go top 10? No. The big question with Emeka Egbuka that people are asking themselves is, can he play on the outside or is he just a slot receiver? I see a lot of websites that kind of list him as just a slot receiver. And, he did play quite a bit in the slot this last year and at Ohio State. He played 500 of his 728 snaps in the slot, only 161 out wide. That being said, he did play out wide a little bit more in 2023. He only played 473 snaps, but 158 of them were out wide compared to 272 in the slot. So he's played a lot more in the slot than he has out wide. That being said, Justin Jefferson was like a slot receiver for LSU. And we see what that meant for that. Like he can obviously play outside. So I think the big question here is Emeka Egbuka just a slot receiver? I don't think the Saints, if they believe that they're going to draft him 9th overall. I don't think they're going to take him that high if they don't think he can play out wide and in the slot. So that's kind of how I'm viewing this, is that they take him 9th overall, they think he can be kind of play everywhere. And so I'm going to take him here at the 107. I like Emeka Egbuka a lot. I wouldn't be shocked if you told me we look back in 3 years and he's the best receiver from this draft class. I wouldn't be that shocked. I really wouldn't be that shocked. At the 108, I have tight end Colston Loveland. And the reason why I'm taking him this high in a non-tight end premium draft, and I will be doing tight end premium drafts for you tight end premium players out there, but he goes to the Chiefs. And I guarantee you, man, and this is more of like, I'm predicting how the draft would go versus how I would draft it. I wouldn't take him this high in a non-tight end premium league. That being said, if he goes to the Chiefs 32nd overall, and that's coming off of like a Travis Kelce retirement potentially, or at least like one more year of Kelce, people are going to jump all over Colston Loveland. I guarantee it. Absolutely guarantee it. So he might even go higher, to be honest. In tight end premiums, he definitely does. I like Colston Loveland. I'm kind of back and forth between him and Tyler Warren, and who's my number one tight end. But I guarantee you, even though Tyler Warren goes higher in this mock draft, I guarantee you that people are going to jump all over that Colston Loveland to the Chiefs, and they're going to love it. No pun intended. At the 109, I have Caleb Johnson here, and I made a mock draft video where I didn't use landing spots. I think that my last mock draft video was no landing spots. And I said that I wouldn't be surprised if Caleb Johnson's a top 5 pick, even in Dynasty Superflex. That being said, I have him here at the 109, which just shows you like the potential depth of this rookie class. And there's a good chance that you could take him at the 107. And there's a good chance that people might. Again, honestly, guys, from like the 102 to the 109, there's a lot of moving around that can go here on personal preference and all of that. So I did take Caleb Johnson here at the 109. He goes also to the Chiefs. It's back-to-back Chiefs players, 64th overall. I think if this happens, that he's going to take over that starting job from Pacheco pretty easily. Maybe Pacheco is still a little bit of a thorn in his side and stuff, but I think I do believe that either they run they're very run heavy and they run like a two backs, they're 1A, 1B type of running back, or Caleb Johnson kind of takes over. That being said, Pacheco his last year is in 2025 as well. So Caleb Johnson could have this backfield to himself as soon as 2026. And I do think he's an all-around workhorse, complete running back. I think he can catch the ball. I don't think he's like amazing at catching the ball, but I think he can catch the ball well. A lot of people have him as their clear-cut RB3 in this draft class. At the 110, I went with Trey Harris, going 25th, first-round pick to the Houston Texans. If this happens, Trey Harris is an interesting one because his production for those people, and I know you have people in your dynasty leagues, guys, that kind of just look at raw stats and that's about it and say, well, why isn't this guy, much higher? Trey Harris had 1,000 receiving yards in 8 games. Like the guy's yard per route run was over 5, which is like unheard of type of stuff, for a guy running as many routes as he did. To have a yards per route run over 5 is like unheard of. People are going to see that type of stuff and be like, I'm taking him, first round pick receiver, going to the Texans. There's a good spot for him with a good quarterback. He can play alongside Nico Collins, especially with Tank Dell being out. I'm not the biggest Trey Harris fan. I'm a little bit lower on him than most people, I would say. I think he's a little bit more of a project. He reminds me a little bit of like a Christian Watson. I think his numbers are a little bit of more a product of the system. That being said, I'm not saying he can't develop into a really good like number 2 receiver. I just don't know what his overall upside is and how consistent he's going to be. So, but he goes first round to the Texans, and it's hard to ignore that. It really is hard to ignore that. At the 111 here, I have Tyler Warren. I take Tyler Warren here, going to the Broncos at 19th overall. Again, I'm back and forth on who I like more, Tyler Warren versus Colston Loveland. As just pure pass catchers, I think Colston Loveland's a little bit better. But in terms of just everything they bring to an offense, I think Tyler Warren is more of that. He can run the ball. He can take snaps out of like a wildcat type of situation. He had over 100 catches and 1,200 yards, so he's a really good receiver too. I think he can be a very good blocker, more so than Colston Loveland. So I think teams are going to like that a little bit more. So I do think he goes over Loveland. But at the same time, like we care more about, do you catch the ball for fantasy, right? But we also need you, we don't want you to be a 70% snap share guy. We want you to be a 90% snap share guy. And I think Tyler Warren has a little bit more of that possibility just because of everything he brings. Like he can kind of do it all from the tight end standpoint. So I think that could get him on the field a lot more versus, a guy like Dalton Kincaid or something who's playing 60, 70% of the snaps because maybe he doesn't do everything that they need from a tight end. But I'll take him here at the 111, going to the Broncos, 19th overall. I love the landing spot too. I think Sean Payton knows how to use him. And then at the 112, I have our fourth running back off the board here, DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. I think people are very familiar with, obviously Jane T, Hampton, Caleb Johnson, maybe less familiar with DJ Giddens. He's moving up draft boards. People are falling in love with DJ Giddens. Super, super productive at Kansas State this last year. And the last couple of years, if I remember correctly, he had over 1,600 yards from scrimmage in 2024 with 8 touchdowns, over 1,500 or 1,550 in 2023. So very, very productive guy over the last couple of years. He's caught 50 passes over his last 2 years, so he can catch the ball. And he gets really good draft capital here. Actually, he's the second running back off the board here. So you can make an argument for him going even higher. He goes to the Chargers, 55th overall. And I think like people are going to love the landing spot. They're going to love that he got good draft capital, second round draft capital. He's the second running back off the board. He could go higher. He really could go higher than guys like Hampton. And maybe there's an argument to be made that why is Hampton going all the way at the 104 when you can get Giddens at the 112, right? And I think that's a fair argument. I really, really do. And that's what makes this draft class so hard, because the running backs are so good, but they're also so deep. They're so deep. And so it makes me lean like, then if I do have a top pick and I have multiple picks throughout this draft, that maybe it's better to get my receiver or tight end or quarterback. And then I can still get a really, really good running back late in the first, early in the second, as you'll see. I do think there's an argument here. Interesting kind of draft strategy here. So that is the first round. Once again, the first round is we have Ashton Jeanty, Luther Burden, Ted McMillan, Omarion Hampton going at the 104, Cam Ward and Shador Sanders at the 106. And then we have Emeka Ibuka, Colson Loveland, Caleb Johnson, Trey Harris, Tyler Warren, and DJ Giddens that round out the first round. This is the first round pick. Is it going to look like this when we draft in May? Probably not. If you guys are enjoying the content, before we get into the second round, just make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Help us get to 1,000 and join our Discord so we can do live Dynasty mock drafts all the way up through the draft and past the draft, the NFL draft. And I can get more than just my opinion in here. I can get you guys in here. That would be very, very valuable. At the 201, I'm going to take a shot on Jalen Milroe here. Jalen Milroe goes to the Raiders, 37th overall. I think that means he's going to get a chance, at least a season probably, to show what he's got. And he's a rushing guy. He's the only cheat code rushing quarterback in this draft class. So he's going to move up my draft board. He could be, honestly, like, I think people don't value enough. Like, you get 2 seasons out of Milroe, even if he's not a very good NFL quarterback, but he gives you 2 seasons of like a top 7 quarterback because he runs the ball. That's way more valuable than most people you're going to get in the second round of a Dynasty rookie draft. I think of Justin Fields. Justin Fields, his like one big year of starting was like the QB7 because he just runs the ball. So I like Milroe. Can he improve as a passer? Absolutely. He's going to go to the Raiders here. I think he's going to get a shot if they take him this high. Basically, if I'm going to draft you as a quarterback that's not a first-round pick, you need to go in the second round, and you need to go to the right team and the right system. Anyone outside of that, I'm not very excited about. I'm really not. At the 202, Quinshawn Judkins. There's a few running backs here that you could go. I think most people would actually say Travion Henderson is the better running back of the two. And I'm not necessarily going to argue that or argue against that. But the landing spots for both for a couple of running backs in this mock draft, specifically Travion Henderson, was not very good. And so I moved him down my board a little bit because, again, we're in the running back tier where, like, you can throw 7-8 guys in this tier, and they're all kind of very similar, in my opinion, in terms of their potential. And it kind of is going to come out to draft capital and landing spot. And so Quinshawn Judkins here, he goes in the third round, the early to mid third round, and he goes to the Patriots. And I think he could just kind of take over that backfield pretty easily, depending, the new coaching staff in there, they're going to take their guy. And I think Judkins becomes their guy. And so I like that more than where Travion Henderson went, which we'll talk about when we get there. At the 203, this is where I put Travis Hunter. And I'm starting to include Travis Hunter into my mock drafts. I wasn't in the beginning, but because I was like, well, I just want to see what he's going to declare as. I think there's a very good chance we're not going to know what he's going to officially declare as and how teams are going to use him until like week 1. I think there's a very good chance. Now, if we come out and we hear he's going to play cornerback and give you 10, 15 snaps on offense, he's not taking this high. If it comes out and says we're taking him as a wide receiver, he goes in the first round pretty easily. And you can argue for him being the best wide receiver in this draft class, over Seth McMillan, over Luther Burden. If we don't know, I think he goes right around this range. Someone's going to take a shot on him and bank on him being a full-time wide receiver. Because if you do, you just got a huge steal, an incredible steal. And I think that value and that gamble is enough to take, because I guarantee you see him walking out there week 1 with Drake May, in the first offensive snap of the game, boop, he skyrockets in value, right? So you gotta think of that. You gotta think of that stuff. Very interesting with Travis Hunter. Such a hard, and how is he going to be listed? If you play in IDP leagues, obviously he should be way higher. At the 204 here, I take a reach here. I know a lot of people don't like this guy, Ollie Gordon, the second, but I guarantee you, if you see Ollie Gordon going in the 3rd round to the Ravens, you're going to be taking a chance on him. People are going to overdraft him, and maybe they should. Ollie Gordon, heading into the 2024 season, he was Ashton Genty. He came off in 2023 a 2,000-yard total yards from scrimmage, 22 touchdowns with 40 catches. Like, he was Ashton Genty coming into this season, and he just fell off. His efficiency went down. He averaged 1.5 yards less per attempt on the ground. He averaged over 2 yards less per reception. Everything was just down. Is that more Oklahoma State? Is that Ollie Gordon? I think there's some flaws in his athletic profile, which kind of led to, this lack of production. So, but I guarantee you, if people see him drafted to the Ravens, they're going to take him. There's 2 more running backs taken in this mock draft that haven't been drafted. And one of them is Travion Henderson, who people like a lot more. I guarantee you people are going to look at it and say, see where Henderson went and see where Ollie Gordon went. There's only 12 picks that separate them. They're going to take Ollie Gordon going to the Ravens and being like kind of the heir apparent to Derrick Henry. Guarantee it. Absolutely guarantee it. And maybe a team can unlock what he had in 2023. Maybe. Just maybe. At the 205, I take a shot here on Jackson Dart. I'm fine with taking a shot at quarterbacks in the 2nd round. It's beyond the 2nd round. It's the 3rd round and beyond where I'm a little bit worried, especially if you don't run. Jackson Dart doesn't run necessarily, but the guy's super, super productive there at Ole Miss. Is it a product of the system a little bit? Oh, by the way, I said he doesn't run. He did have 500 yards rushing. So I shouldn't say like he doesn't run. I just don't know if he's going to be like, difference maker type of guy in the NFL level. But the production's there. I mean, he had over 4,000 yards passing. He led the entire nation in QB rating, in air yards per attempt, in yards per attempt. He led the SEC in yards per completion, yards per game, yards, completion percentage, like everything. And he goes to the Niners here. And in the 43rd overall. And I think if the Niners are doing that, that's very telling about what they think of Brock Purdy. Is that, do we want to pay Brock Purdy $50 million a year? I don't think they do, guys. I really, really don't think they do. I think Kyle Shanahan believes in his system over quarterbacks. I really, really do. And I think he's going to look at it and say, I feel like I can get similar production out of a guy like Jackson Dart, letting him sit for a year and learning behind Purdy versus paying Purdy $50 million a year. I really do think they think that. So, and I think that's kind of the mindset if they do take Jackson Dart here early in the 2nd round. And then at the 206, I drafted Isaiah Bond. I'm not the biggest Isaiah Bond fan. I appreciate what he can bring to an offense. He's very, very fast. He's probably going to run in the 4.2s. He just wasn't productive at Texas this year. I don't really understand. I know going into the year, he was like very highly valued, but he just wasn't productive for the Longhorns this year. Only 540 yards on 34 catches. You just look at his last several games, and this is in playoff stuff and conference championships. 1 catch for 22 yards against Georgia. 0 catches against Arizona State in their first playoff game. 1 catch against Ohio State in their second playoff game. Like, what is that exactly? Like, what are we doing here? It's interesting to me. It's very interesting to me. And But he does go in this draft, in this mock draft, 38th overall to the Patriots. You got to realize people seeing the Patriots draft a receiver, they're not going to be excited. They are not going to be excited about that. I guarantee you. So, that's going to really, it's not going to make them excited because Patriots have not been able to draft these guys. They haven't been able to draft wide receivers. So, but that is the first 6 picks of the second round. Again, Jalen Milroe, Quinshon Judkins, Travis Hunter, Ollie Gordon, Jackson Dart, and Isaiah Bond. At the 207, I finally take Travion Henderson. And why do I push him down this far? 1, there's a lot of good running backs in this draft class. 2, he goes to the Colts. He gets drafted by the Colts, 80th overall. I hate that draft spot for him. I think at the very worst, Jonathan Taylor's obviously there in 2025 and probably in 2026 as well, as long as Jonathan Taylor keeps producing. We're not talking about some mid-level starter like a Ramondre Stevenson that he's getting drafted to. We're talking about Jonathan Taylor, who I think most people will agree is the best, one of the better running backs in this draft in the NFL. In the NFL, the guy rushed for over 1,400 yards, 4.7 yards per attempt. And he's still young. He's still only 26 years old, I believe, in this upcoming season. He's turning 26 years soon. So, I hate that for Travion Henderson. And I think what we've seen over the last few years, Zach Charbonnet going to the Seahawks did nothing year 1, playing behind Kenneth Walker. Blake Corum going to the Rams did nothing this year, playing behind Kyron Williams. Tank Bigsby going to the Jags did nothing year 1. These running backs, history shows, running backs drafted, even if they're drafted second or third round, that are drafted to a team with an established starter. I did research on this. I made a whole video about this. None of them do anything year 1. None of them do anything year 1, guys. And so I think we got to take that approach with Travion Henderson. Trey Benson's another guy going to the Cardinals and playing behind James Conner. So what does that mean? Is Travion Henderson's value goes down. It's not going to go up unless Jonathan Taylor gets hurt. So I could see taking him a little bit higher because you believe in the talent and, you're banking on an injury a little bit, but I wouldn't expect anything from him year 1, which means his value is probably just going to go down unless JT gets hurt. It sucks because I like Travion Henderson a lot. I think if he goes to the right team with the right draft capital, he's a argument for a late first round pick in Dynasty rookie drafts. That's the big difference here. At the 208, I take Harold Fannin Jr., tight end. The dude has ridiculous numbers. I think he led the entire nation in catches and yards as a tight end. He played at Bowling Green, so a little bit less of a competition, but the guy had 117 catches and over 1,550 yards. It was insane. He goes to the Colts, 45th overall. He could go higher because he has a little bit of a cult following. The vibe I'm getting from the Dynasty community is Harold Fannin Jr. has a bit of a cult following. And some people have him as their top tight end. I've seen that before too. So could he go higher? Absolutely. Absolutely. My issue with him is he's a tweener, and I don't know exactly where he's going to fit in. And so he has to go to the right team. Are the Colts the right team? I really don't know. It's not in terms of pass volume, it's not the greatest. At the 209, I have Xavier Restrepo. I have 2 receivers in the next 2 picks, Restrepo and Matthew Golden. I'm going to talk about them together. Restrepo goes 3rd round to the Cowboys. Golden goes 3rd round to the Steelers. Both these guys I really like. I have them higher than most people I see in terms of consensus. I actually have Golden higher than Restrepo personally. But that being said, I like Restrepo's draft spot a lot more. Going to the Cowboys, a team that has a quarterback, he can play alongside CeeDee Lamb pretty well there. He could easily be the number 2 guy, in my opinion. So I kind of went with, even though I like Golden a little bit better, I'm going to go with the better landing spot for the Cowboys. Now, if the Steelers figure out their quarterback situation, that's different. Or George Pickens is gone, that's different. But I like both these guys. I think they're pretty good value here potentially in the mid-second round. I think because of all the running backs, and if these quarterbacks go this high, and if these tight ends go this high, we could get some value, a wide receiver late or mid to late second round. Restrepo and Golden are 2 guys I'm going to be looking at in this range that I really like them. I think Golden has a better chance to be a wide receiver 1. I think Restrepo's a little bit safer as just like a solid number 2 wide receiver. I like both of them. I think they're good value here in the mid to late second round. And then we're wrapping this up. We have Nicholas Singleton, who does get drafted. By the way, I didn't even mention this. I'm not taking anyone that wasn't drafted. So there's players that I like that weren't drafted in this draft class or in this mock draft. I'm only doing the guys that were taken, were in the mock draft. Nicholas Singleton goes to the Cardinals, which is a very, very strange spot for him because now you have James Conner, Trey Benson, and Singleton. So not only are you battling the established veteran there, you're battling another young player who was taken in the 3rd round last year, who people liked, Trey Benson. I don't know how to take that. I guess I can take a shot on him in this late 2nd round and hope that he wins the number 2 job over Trey Benson, but there's a good chance he's the RB3 for this team. I know a lot of people like Nicholas Singleton. I'm not as high as other people. I like other running backs more than him, but he was drafted in this draft class to a potentially decent team in this mock draft, and I'll take a shot on him late in the 2nd. And then at the 212, I have Elik Iomanner, who is a guy that I think I'm higher on than a lot of people. Don't really love. I don't hate the draft spot. I don't love the draft spot. It's the Buccaneers in the 2nd round. I think he has good talent. I think he has all the skills to be a number 1 guy. Is it all going to come together? I don't really know. I'm not 100% sure here if it's all going to come together for him. But that being said, I like the talent, and it's not a terrible draft spot. He is going to have to compete with Jalen McMillan and potentially Godwin. I assume if they're taking a receiver, though, here, Godwin's not there. So, well, there you have it, guys. That is my 4th Dynasty Rookie Mock Draft. Once again, get into our Discord so that we can do some live ones with all of you guys and get more than just my opinion. Would appreciate that. Appreciate you guys helping us get to 1,000 subscribers. I'll catch you guys all in the next video.